Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to the worst reviews ever. I got Amazing in here with a silly hat on, whatever that is. And got my man Casey Fred in here.
What's up?
Yeah, everybody else, it's summer months, so people could be missing and stuff, but they doing the family thing and can't be mad at that. So they'll be back shortly, but we gonna hold it down today. Oh, there go my
Yeah.
man. Go Wally right there. What's good, Wally?
What's
Hey.
going on, everybody?
Hey, Wally.
Yeah, we was just making fun of Amazing's whatever headpiece.
Well, it's like crystals, like lighting crystal
If
crowns.
if I remember correctly, one person in this crew told us to come festive.
He did.
So I did. I came with my bells.
I'm filing paperwork on her. I'm filing paperwork.
I was looking for my box. I keep a storage box with like all my decorations. So I have my Halloween decorations, but I couldn't find my New Year's stuff timely. So I had to grab a little bit of Christmas.
Hey, nothing wrong with it because, hey, I'm telling you right now, we are celebrating. So, here's your flowers right here. Okay. So,
Thank you. Oh, look, Fred, you handed them over and looky.
Fred's flowers looked a lot nicer. But all right, let me go ahead and pull these slides up. So today we're going to review the movie Madam Web. So let me go ahead and read the summary background and all that. Butcher the names once again. So Madam Web is a 2024 American superhero film featuring the Marvel Comics character of the same name. Cassie Webb is explored as she confronts her past while trying to save three young women from Ezekiel Sims, who wants to kill them before they become Spider-Woman in the future and kill him. All right, let me go ahead and get to the director slide. So the director for this movie, directed by, was S.J. Clarkson, written by Karim Sanga, Matt Sazma, Burke Sharpless, produced by Lorenzo D. I'm not even going to go into the last name. Butcher that one. Sorry, Lorenzo. Oh, there you go. Shout out to Wally, my man Wally, down there in South Florida. All right, so the cast for this movie: Dakota Johnson as Cassandra Cassie Webb, Madam Webb; Sydney Sweeney as Julia Cornwall; Isabella Merst as Anya Corzon; Celeste O'Connor as Maddie Franklin; Tamar Rahim as Ezekiel Sims; Mike Epps in his 5-minute scene as O'Neill; Emma Roberts as Mary Parker; Adam Scott as Ben Parker; and Carrie Bashir as Constance Webb. So, all right,
wait,
man.
they don't claim the Parkers?
What was that?
I didn't know they were playing the Parkers. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I was a little thrown off by that. But let's go ahead and jump into the rating. Oh, what was that?
I think they weren't they brother sister Ben and.
Yeah, at first I thought they was married and stuff, but yeah, they're brother and sister. So I had to go back and check that out. They threw me off a little bit because it seemed like he wanted to get with Madam Web at first, but I was like, man, this dude kind of shady. But all right, we'll start with the rating, and I'll go ahead and kick it off this time. I gave this one a 7.5, so I'm in a very good territory. All right, amazing.
Gosh, I really wanted to rate it higher, but I'm gonna go with 6.
A 6, average and good. Okay. I thought you would have been on your feminist stuff today, supporting the cause. But all right, you got a strong 6 there. All right, Casey Fred.
I actually am right between you guys where I said 6.5 actually.
Okay, damn. Okay. All right, my man Wally. The voice of reason.
So funny enough, right? Because this was literally touted as being a horrible movie, right? Especially amongst Marvel's standpoint. And of course, a lot of people thought they were gonna get like a great origin story, which I thought too. I have a lot of mixed feeling in my rating, but I'm actually right in the middle the same way. I got a 7.
Okay. So a 7. Definitely feeling like I'm gonna drop after I hear some of y'all like but all right, we'll go ahead. Mason, since you got the lowest, we're gonna start with you, and then I'll give my breakdown since I'm the other outlier.
So I give it a 6 because I actually had to go watch clips of it because I watched this movie a long time ago when it came out. When I saw it on Netflix, so I thought it was going to be good. Wanted to see it. At that time, I would have gave it a higher. When I went to watch, just some like different clips of the movie, and I was fast forwarding to be ready for today, I ended up noticing stuff that I really had not noticed before. And one of the things that really was annoying me was the voiceovers. And I did not notice that the first time. But then once I noticed it a couple times, I just kept watching, and it seemed like they voice over a lot. Like the lips weren't sinking in, and I just thought that was lame. And then there was a couple scenes that I put together afterwards just by names, and then the spider thing. And then I was reading different comments because like Wally said, I had seen this movie got like super bad reviews. So I'm not super familiar with Marvel or the comics or anything, but I know obviously like Spider-Man, Peter Parker. So I had seen somebody comment about Emma being pregnant, and I guess that would be Peter Parker, and there was like a connection there. I would have had no idea of some of these connections had I not seen other people talk about it, and I just felt like that was a disservice for somebody that doesn't know the history of it. There wasn't enough, if I just watched this for the first time, I felt like they could have done better connections to help people get into it more. So I liked it overall. I just felt like those were some gaps for me.
Well, yeah, to help you out, right? Because one of the major connections. So the thing with Madam Web and her connection with Peter Parker, which ends up being Spider-Man, is Madam Web has this power where she pretty much literally can integrate herself into this web multiverse, right? Where she can pretty much be anywhere and everywhere all at once, in a simple sense of a thread. So her main goal, based upon her powers, which is a rarity to be exact, is she can pretty much help and guide the many Spider-Men and or women out there in the universe in multiple ways to help them figure out things. So if you watch the original cartoon, The Amazing Spider-Man, which you would notice that bigger connection because she's literally throughout the whole series, that's where that comes into play.
See, and I feel like if I would have known that, it would have like just made the movie so much better for me. So I feel like if maybe there was a better job of some sort of connection, I wouldn't have even known that there was a connection without somebody saying something where it, I think there should have been at least something to make me like, oh, I need to go watch, something to put the pieces together. So that's why I was at the lower end.
Yeah, but you also got to remember Madam Web is before Peter Parker's time, so there was never going to be a connection at that point.
Yeah, but I didn't even know about Peter Parker or any of that until
that's the whole point. And that's the whole point. If you don't know, if you're watching it for the first time, you're not gonna know because
that's why they got
nice story. Well, hey,
you didn't realize the connection when they had the big ass spiders on their uniforms towards the end?
No, I thought it was like a spin-off, like they're trying to do a lady spider.
Nah, that ain't no spinoff. Just got that.
All right, my breakdown. The reason I gave it a 7.5, the opposite of amazing. It's a terrible rating. And I don't understand why she doesn't really like females. They're just out here trying to, be in movies, uplift themselves, and here comes amazing. Just shitting on them. So I just don't understand the animosity that she has for other females. But going back to my rating of a 7. No, but the reason I gave it a 7.5 because I like how they didn't have the connection because I think they're in that early phase of like, you know, kind of figuring things out. And one thing I really liked about this movie, this one, was, you know, they didn't really give the girls any powers. So it's like if you want to set up like a series of movies, I think they did a good job of, you know, making this one like it was a little bland, but it was the introduction. Like Madam Web, she got her powers. You kind of seen the flashes, but they're still coming into age. So it's not like you know, they didn't jump too fast into like, oh, they figured everything out. They trained in like one day and they took out this guy. You know, it just it was kind of clumsy and how she came into her powers, and you know, the girls still didn't have a clue of like what they're capable of. So I like how they kind of did this first story the way that they did. I thought that was pretty clever. So it's like, you know, a lot of times, you know, when they start a series, they'll set the bar so high, jam everything in the first one, and then, you know, the following series, there, you know, it can't really build up too much. There's only, I think, a few series that actually were able to do that. And I think the way that they set this one kind of set the tone, put the story out there about her mom going out there and how she became. And then I think in a later series, they probably have like it intertwined with like Spider-Man and stuff. Cause like what Wally said, it's like, if this is the beginning, you know, there ain't gonna be, she's still figuring out her powers herself. So once she kind of figures it out, that's when they could introduce so much more, you know, and have the girls build up to their powers, their training and stuff, and another villain and stuff. So I like the way how they built this one up. So I thought it was like clever. It was a little like, I'll say slow as a movie, but I think it was smart that they did it like that. So like the next one, it could be like I said, everybody's starting to train and get their powers and stuff, and more of a story develop, then other characters could start coming in. So I thought that was pretty clever. So all right, we'll go to Wally.
All right, so the reason why I gave this a 7, one of the biggest things I hate is when people say a movie is like terrible because they rated this a 4 between bad and decent. But the reason why I hate it so bad is because it's one thing when you tell someone it, is another thing when someone go watch it. They somewhat understand where you're coming from, and then it's like, okay, nah, y'all over here playing. Now again, granted, I don't really know too much of the ultimate origins of Madam Web to the fullest extent, but to what I, you know, choose to dig, do some research while I was watching the movie and everything else, this is close to it as much as possible, as far as her purpose, as far as working with the 3 girls, which eventually becomes, you know, Spider women in their own sense, and everything else of that nature. So for me, looking at this was just more so of I can see where people can feel some type of way about it, where it's sort of, you know, dipped it down. But I can also say that I don't want to see this anymore down like it was just ultimately terrible, because a lot of people made a lot of certain comments about certain placements as far as like, oh, how she get to Peru and how she did this and that and everything else. I'm like, okay, look here. Y'all over compensating things. Let's be honest. You really think they're gonna show you every ounce of ways of people moving and shifting? It's like, no, they're not gonna do all that. It's just not needed, especially with all that filter. Is like, what, you're gonna see a quick moment up on the plane, then the next moment you're right there. Let's be real about it. So yeah, it was just very planned. But even when it comes to people that are the actual fans and are movie reviewers, they even said this was suck. And I'm looking at this from my standpoint, and I'm like, y'all selling this way too down deep because of certain factor points. But again, like I said, I'm not too knowledgeable of Madam Web to the fullest extent, so I can't say like what was her original orange story and how did it really popped off and everything else. But as far as what I do know and what I have seen, it was pretty solid for what it was. I think the moment I switched mine to like a 7 was like towards the upper mid end. That's when I sort of switched it off, because early parts I was like, yeah, I'm starting to see why this is what it is. But it's like, okay, leave that stuff alone. And it's like, okay, really, when you look at it, it's up there. It's not, you know, great as the others, but it's up there. But one thing for sure, I'm gonna take this from Fred. this deserved to be a TV series. The reason why I would consider this more of a TV series than a movie is because you definitely know, like she's seen that the guy did see that there were supposed to be a battle with these 3 females, and to eclipse this from coming true later down the line, he wanted to end their lives now. And sadly enough, he didn't expect to see, Mrs. Webb, Explorer Webb's daughter, in the mix, where she contests his abilities with her own and then stop him from doing everything. Now, granted, when you look at a lot of this, you think to yourself, how does one telekinesis person with power to see the future and predict things able to stop a dude that has powers that can leap, jump, climb walls, and then literally poison you? How does that work? You think to yourself, that's literally impossible, which I do think that is for sure the biggest crux of this movie. And I think that's probably why I think in most cases, a lot of people can rate this down, because it's not believable that that dude just ended up dying like that. And then that's just how it ends. Like, that was just horrible.
Yeah, I think people don't like the build up. I think sometimes people want everything rushed. So that's what I'm saying. I appreciated the fact that like this one was kind of boring, because it's like they didn't even get into the girls' powers really. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
so
oh, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, because real quick, because the reason why I said I wanted this to be more of a TV show, because the moment you just put it on, right, as far as the characters, I did not know there was a Ben Parker here, and I did not know there was a close relations. So as far as like just their character wise, because that is pretty interesting. I did not know she had any connection with Ben Parker, because that's interesting, because a lot of cases when you learn about Ben Parker, you don't really know that he was a firefighter, quote unquote, before once upon a time, and there's not no deeper connection as far as that. And I don't know if that's in the comics the same way, but if it is, that's very interesting. Because
so that was Peter Parker's mom, pretty much, huh?
Yeah, so they're brother and sister. Yeah. So she was pregnant with Peter. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. I'm going up. I'm going up already.
Yeah, and the uncle, is the caregiver, which, noticeably enough, the same tales of. It's funny because the person, the guy, right, that is the I guess the protector of the spiders that gives the powers in that in the Pearl Islands. They literally says the popular phrase, with great power comes with great responsibility. Funny enough, Ben ends up saying the same thing to Peter, which, it's just a lovely, nice cherry on top. Just saying, nice memorabilia. So, I chose to give this set.
Okay. Damn. I didn't even catch that. I'm boosting it up.
You didn't catch that when I gave my review? I literally said she was
I think it was the hat, honestly, that made me like tone out a little bit. But you did say that. Now that I'm reflecting.
You see how I get treated, people?
No, I was just honestly, man, I'm going to be honest, Amazing. I was a little disgusted how you treated women. I don't know what you... I don't know what your issue is.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're sexist. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it kind of like left like a rough spot in my soul when you like treat women like that. But let me go ahead and get Casey Fred.
Okay, so I think I have to almost agree with everyone, except for the simple fact that at the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, I rated this as a 5. And then you saw how I put it at a 6.5 before it was over with. And that's only because one thing, as it progressed, you finally found out where it was going. But the reality is, at the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, it was boring. It's almost as if you're cooking a meal and then you're like, this needs a little something. Does it need salt? Does it need some seasoning? Man, but it needs something. It needs a little bit of help. And I felt like that's where the audience was. We weren't really catching on to everything, because one thing, the most exciting person on there, I hate to say this, was the villain. And so at the end of the day, we see what he can do, and we're like, oh man, who's going to stop him? We're going to stop him. And we're wondering when these girls are going to get powers. And the most famous line of the movie is, he was like, you're looking at them, but I'm your future. And that's what Madam Web says to him right before she kills him. And so at the end of the day, that's what I was saying. You realize that she's coming into her own. She never realized who she was for the first 30 years of life. And then all of a sudden, as tragedy starts happening, and she finds in herself that all of a sudden she has this power, that's when all of a sudden, piece by piece, we're watching it slowly as it all comes together. And it was so slow, it actually reminded you of a spider making a web, which is kind of ironic to the movie. But it took its time and was going around and around until that spider all of a sudden became a full fledged spider, which is what she did. And then all of a sudden, when she was able to finally realize what she was doing, and the guy told her back in the cave or whatever that, hey, when you have fully realized who you are, you accept who you are, then all of a sudden you will be able to finally do one of your major powers. And that was to be at all these places at once, which it happened just why she was able to rescue all three girls before they went to their tragic death, which that didn't happen. And because she was able to see these things before it occurred, it helped out. But the thing about it is at the beginning, she didn't know what she had. And I felt sorry for my boy, Mike Epps. I love him and everything, but my boy had to die. I was like, come on, man. He's the only black brother on here. And he had to go. But that was what it took for her to realize, hey, you know what? I got to be able to figure out what's going on with me. And so I will have to agree with everyone. This should have been a mini series because one thing, you need it for it to keep going. You want to be able to find out, okay, when do you come into your power? These three girls who were, in a sense, all neglected, left alone, and it was just like left by themselves. And she realized if I don't take care of them, then the reality is who will? And so it was just like, here she is at 30, and now she's got three girls. And then the other thing is at the very end, which made me push it at 6.5, is no greater love than this, one to lay down their life. She taught them how to do that CPR and be able to do that chest and be able to compress, not realizing when she sacrificed her life for these girls, that that was the very thing that three girls would do to her in order to bring her back to life. And I said to myself, that is the web coming together. And so I just thought, man, at the end, you saved yourself. But at the beginning, we were all yawning and trying to figure out, when is this all supposed to come together? When is the action supposed to take place? And that's one of the reasons why, for it to be a Marvel movie, I'm sorry, there's no way that you guys could tell me we would go to the movie theater. And once again, I will say, like last week, pay God-given money to see this at full price. I'm thankful it was on Netflix. We needed to see it Netflix, but then there was a lot of questions at the very end that we're trying to figure out. Well, who's who, what's related to, what's these people's special powers? And that's why it needed to be a mini series. I think the special effects was cool, but I think it would have been even better if they go back to a cartoon, which, as you guys know, even Spider-Man had a cartoon and all the kids ran out to go see that. Everybody was talking about that, you know? And so I think that's where I'm at with that. I left it right there at 6.5 because, like I said, at first I had it at a 5 because one thing, it needed something. It needed some help. But it finally came as all of a sudden you start learning, you start figuring things out, and it's just like the movie. She had to go to Purdue. She had to go back into her past to really figure out who she really was. And once she figured out who she was, that's when the power came. And so then that's when you realize, okay, I think she can handle this villain. It ain't about the three girls no more. It's about Mama Bear. And she took care of him. And I felt like, hey, and she sacrificed herself, which is what most mama spiders do. Bears, you can name any animal. That's what mamas do. They take care of their little cubs. And all of a sudden, that's what she did. She went out there and she handled business because they didn't have their powers. They weren't going to be able to do anything. And so she sacrificed even herself. And I thought it was kind of ironic that she would go into the water because that's the second time. And she seemed like every time she goes into the water, that's when her powers really seem like they activate for some strange reason. And she's able to go to a whole nother level. So that's where I'm at.
All right,
No,
let me
it's
jump
interesting
into
you
the.
say that.
Oh, go ahead, Wally. What was you about to say?
No, because to Fred's point when he mentioned about like the movie like starting up, like I will say this, right? If people do have an issue with that, I mean, what do you expect? I think honestly, let's be honest, right? When you started it up, they're in the forest. You know, most of the times, most things in the forest, you're going to be like very careful, so it's going to be a little bit slow. So that's expected, right? I think once the villain start making the shots after Miss Explorer Webb mentions about getting the spider and everything, and he start getting the shot. That was a little bit more of the proactiveness, and then of course the other the protectors of these spiders that have the origins and know their secrets. They start popping out of nowhere and then pick her up, save her, magically start quickly jumping and dropping her into the water, which then safely pour out the baby, which funny enough, like you said before on the water, that's actually 3 times because she was birthed into the water.
That's it.
That's so right. So when you look at the origins and everything else, from that perspective, yeah, a lot of it's going to be slow. I think also another big part is because this was my thing for me. It was just like, well, how did she get back home? How do you know that she's from America? Like, let's be real here. Like, how do you know to take her back over to America, let alone anything else? And then it was funny enough, like, okay, you gave all her mother's things. She had the book, everything else. I'm like, how were you able to ensure that whoever she lived with, they kept all that? Like, okay, like. That's the part of me like, okay, I can see that part and I'm be like, yeah, that may be disappointing because you did not straighten that out for me. Like, there's no way I'm going to believe you just brung her back home and then it's like, whoosh, it fixed itself up. Like,
That's
that was a little bit.
That's why you needed the miniseries.
That's what I'm saying, because that right there was that was a stretch. And I will say that was a little bit like, no for me because it was just too much. It was just way out of bounds for me at that point from that starting point because it's like you had no clothes, you were in like a webbish type thing, and it's like now I'm actually seeing you again. It's like, okay, now you're fully enclosed and everything else. Like, how does this work? Okay, but yeah, we'll something outside.
All right, so let me go ahead and ask y'all the questions and stuff. So I start with Amazing. Would you recommend this movie to anyone, and would you watch this again?
Yes and yes.
All right, Casey, Fred.
I actually would watch it again so I would say yes and yes too. And like I said, I got it at 6.5, and the only reason why I would is because one thing, they leave you wanting more because you do want to find out what happens to these little girls. And now that she's there at the very end and to be able to nurture them and be able to take care of them, it's like you wanted to see it progress. Now, I don't know if they have the budget because they only had one person really producing this, but you kind of like rooting for them at the end. And so that was one of the reasons why like I went ahead and pushed it up.
Okay. All right, Wally.
For me, would I watch it again? Yes. And would I give this to someone else to watch themselves? Yeah. Just purely for me, why I would watch it again is simply because A, it's Marvel. I'm gonna watch it, and 2, I was truly rooting for this to be a legit thing, a very highly legit thing, because when you do origin stories, especially from Marvel or DC's standpoint, origin stories are very important. And for me, because I know some people may say otherwise, but origin stories from the character's perspective is really important. I don't care if you call them a side character or not, or they're not a main character. I don't care how you feel. But every character that's in there that has a very higher reason to be there, they always deserve an origin stories of why they're there why they're mainly there, like why they're so important in the whole crux of it all, right? Because The only thing is because now that you understand where the powers come from, how she got it, why she is the only one to be able to do this, and then everything else is the reason why you look at this at a more higher intensity. Because funny enough, if you actually connect this back to I forgot the other Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man. If you actually connect it to that movie and how they explained it, I forgot which one. I think it's the second one. I believe they did it in where they can explain this big oversized web that connects all the spider universes and stuff like that, which also explains a lot of the multiverse in their jurisdiction. It pretty much goes back to what she's able to do herself throughout her webs and throughout her strain of webs in the Spider-Verse of it all. So I sort of know, like, pick that connection a little bit as similar. So yeah, for me personally, this was like I was really rooting for this, and when I heard that it was bad, I'm glad I watched it to know that it wasn't as bad as most people think it is. But again, you know, when you talk about true fans and understanding the comics and everything else, you know, hey, there's certain things that are in the storyline that you wish happened that didn't happen, and it was just.
All right, we could hit the plot and the storyline real quick because we kind of already dug into this one, but I'll kind of kick it off. I do like the plot and the storyline, but one of the issues I did have with the character, probably when they developed Madam Web, is like you said, it's too related to Spider-Man. I wish they would have used another creature or something like that, because you know we were so used to like the Spider-Man storyline. So now, I mean, kind of makes a little sense since it intertwines a little bit. But yeah, I think it's just, you know, with that, after all the Spider-Man movies, I think it was just like, you know, probably everybody just had Spider Overkill too, where it's just like,
this is what it's really built on, though. It's built on the Spider-Verse. It's built on these unique spiders. What else is there?
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, I get you, because they all kind of connect, but it's just like, I think after they made so many of the Spider-Man movies, you know, that been such a like cornerstone and Marvel and stuff, is just, yeah, I think people might have got a little burnt out with this one. So, but I mean, overall I like the storyline, because like I said, now that it makes sense that like this is the beginning phase and stuff, I do have a more of appreciation for that. So yeah, kind of does all intertwine. I think it's just spider burnout at this point. But all right,
it's Marvel burnout. That's what it is.
Yeah, it might be that. You ain't lying. But let me toss it to you, Wally. We'll go to you. What did you think about the plot of the storyline?
Okay, the plot and the storyline. Storyline, I liked it. The plot. So this was the real hitter for me. Why I didn't really I couldn't see this higher, and I also had a very big issue with it. One of the main thing is, if the guy that is the villain is constantly seeing these three girls, and surprisingly enough, never noticed about the woman that you killed's daughter ever, then for me, I look at that as y'all pretty much changed the course of things, and you changed it to the worst conditions. The reason why I say this is because the man's main vision is being defeated by these three girls. Now, yeah, I changed that, and he's defeated by Madam Web. What are we doing here? Like, those three girls, like, that's the three girls, that's his villain. That's their villain. You're just there to guide them. So for me, it did look very permissible at that point, where I'm like, okay, you find three girls. Each of these three girls that you find were all on strange moments. One flicked you off. One was there because you saved her mother from being, passed away. And then the other one is she was pretty much homeless because she was technically a quote unquote a fugitive because of the fact that her father got deported and she didn't want to get deported either. So with that said, when all these other cases in the mix, you would think to yourself somewhere along the line, okay, you figure this out. You try to, like, you get intermixed with the powers eventually, right? Your first big hit was when you fall into the water. The second one was then now, you're seeing all these visuals and then you're trying to figure it out. Like, because the one big pre-caveat to the power thing I've noticed is this actually, like, kicks back to a little bit of Peter Parker and what he was going through, because once Peter Parker start leaving the powers and start leaving the Spider-Man life alone, notice one thing: the power started to wither away. It's like, so pretty much the power is like a muscle. If you don't train it, it fades away. And it's like same thing. She had to train it to really grasp it. If she ain't trained herself to grasp it, then you never get it. So, in a lot of cases, I look at a lot of these Spider Girls and how they did the powers, how they showed it and everything else, because part of the research that I did when I looked it up is understanding these girls, how their powers are and what their powers can do. And a lot of these things, I'm thinking to myself, when was this coming into play? Because none of them have connections to the actual spider themselves. So it was sort of a miss to me that while she was going to Peru, she didn't think, hey, let me take the girls with me because they'll be more safe with me somewhere else versus staying here, probably being seen, which, funny enough, that was about to damn sure happen. And, she could have lost much more than just them 3 girls. She could have lost her friend and everything else of that nature. So, from that standpoint, that's the problem I have with that. After that, pretty much the last thing, though, like once, as you know, if you ever watch Amazing Spider-Man, the cartoon series, you do see Madam Web with the glass and the shades, everything, like how you see her towards the end, which was very interesting because that is literally close enough as you can get to a Madam Web, costume and image look to the highest degree. The only difference is that you don't get too close enough is it's just the actual chair that is, seen in the cartoons, and then of course her body, because her legs actually is more now. Her legs not even there. It's like a swarm, it's like a swerve now more than ever. Like it's cocooned into a swerve. So, but just to see like a future product of what her suit will look like and all that, that was very interesting. So that could give us intel that they might be working on a part 2, which hopefully, I hope they do redeem this a little bit in a lot of because seriously, this was really good though. I mean, a lot of people can say what they want, but when you look at the elements of a superhero movie and everything else that goes along with it and all the intangibles, this was actually pretty good. With all the intangibles, it's all really good. So I can't really knock this. And I'm surprised a lot of people just didn't notice the intangible parts that actually made it good, because they just brushed it off. Because I guess if you're a true fan of it and you're like, or you just seen too much gaps and you're worrying about too much of the gaps. So yeah, that's my main thing. I actually would love to see the girls had end him versus it be her ending him, because it would make more sense. You're helping the girls figure out how to beat him, and how they're going to do this is because they end up getting the powers. They come with you, they get entrusted with the powers by the spider, and they develop their powers, which then they learn from you. They learn all this, then they come back, and then of course, boom, you fight him, you catch him slipping, and then he dies. But that's not the case, which is hard. Part 2 to this, the big punch in the face was for me though, in this whole thing of the plot, was his damn costume. That thing was too close to Spider-Man. It's like the face.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. It was
that pissed me off. I was like, you know what? Screw y'all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. They should have gave him like a cape, something that like don't they should have went the Spider-Man route with him.
Oh, they definitely could have went something else, but just the mask, like the mask shouldn't be that well. The way how the eyes were looking, they could have made it different somehow, some way. I don't care how it is. Make it circles for peep's sakes. Spider's got like circle eyes and stuff, but like make it something like that, because that was just pissing me off.
But all right, let me go ahead and go to Fred on this. What did you think about the plot and the storyline?
So I thought it was slow. It was an hour and 56 minutes, and the build up was slow. And the reason why, like I said, any other movie, we probably would have turned this off and shut it off. But at the very beginning, they flat out show you and tell you that this is a Marvel movie. So at the end of the day, you're like, okay, when are you going to start acting like Marvel? Because Marvel, we would have rated this, a real Marvel movie would have rated this a 9, 9.5, because they have set the bar so high. And then so what happens is in this movie is this girl, all of a sudden, we've already discussed, comes from into this world through tragedy and the loss of her mom. And so you don't see any of really of her childhood. All you really see is she's coming of age. She's basically, I believe they said 30 or something like that now. And then that's where all of a sudden she takes off. And then she is like, at those particular moments, she has little bits and fragments of pieces of who she is. But you're trying to figure out, okay, where is the action going to be? Because the action is really all on the villain side. And then you find out, of course, he is so, perplexed by this vision that he's had, that all of a sudden he's willing to kill, he's willing to all of a sudden steal. He's willing to all of a sudden get the program. I think it was NSA or something, where it's kind of like Big Brother, like the Eye or something, where you're able to try to attract people and be able to find people by facial identity and recognition, which we do have that, in this world today. And all of a sudden, this is where the action takes place. And so you're wondering, okay, when is she going to come alive, and when is she's going to all of a sudden be able to be that person she's supposed to be? And the reality is, it took a while, but it took these girls for her to all of a sudden be in her life, for her to all of a sudden at the end of the movie, she ends up being the mom that she wished she had, but her mom left her and just brought her into the world. That was the best that she could do because she was dying. But at least she saved her so that way she could be alive. And so at the end of the day, she was kind of self-absorbed, self-centered. She didn't want to be around no baby showers. She didn't want to be around she had a bad perspective on life. But once these 3 girls all of a sudden enter her world.
You said because she wouldn't go to no baby showers?
She didn't want to be there, man. I
vibed with her.
I'm sorry, but you got to think about it. They did make her seem unhuman and or unsympathetic in a lot of ways, which I'll speak on that based upon scenes. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll get there. But at the end of the day, I'm just walking you through this plot of how slow it was for the conversion of her becoming Madam Web. I mean, you're waiting for, in every movie, you're waiting for, why do we call her this? What is the reason behind this? And Marvel is usually an action-packed, bang, 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 thriller type of thing. And to be honest with you, I believe that's one of the reasons why people felt like they were let down, because it didn't have that type of action. And there was so many missing holes, so many things weren't explained. Even you guys are already talking about what questions you had and things weren't fulfilled, and they kind of left you hanging. And so luckily for at least half of us, we kind of be able to either read the story, saw the comic book. But what if you're new to this and you just love Marvel and you can't wait to be able to find out what this is
about? That's y'all damn fault.
Anything about it.
No, I'm gonna say that, because here's my thing. This is my only thing I always tell people. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an origin story. Of course, it's gonna be slow. I'm not gonna lie.
Tell them, Wally.
I think this is why a lot of people don't care for the origin movies, because it's gonna be slow. Think about it. If you look at okay, you remember watching the TV show Gotham, but you're trying to see, young Bruce Wayne trying to be thrown into the path of being Batman. Right? It's slow. It's a TV series, but you like it though. But I get it from the standpoint of a movie. You would think this would be a little bit more fast packed. It has it all and it's ready to go. And I think, again, that's another problem. I think this is why I did said that this deserved to be a TV series. But even then, it's understand, this is an origin story. It's definitely going to be slow, because you're not going to get to the bigger part of it until you get to the end.
So, Wally, just to be
like Seth Curry out here.
Hey, Wally, just debated throw a little flashback at you. That's the reason why this movie is basically 10 to 15 years way longer, and it should have been back in the past when the first early Spider-Man movies came out, because the society that we living in right now is a microwave society. Everybody wants their popcorn right now. They don't want to be cooking over the stove. They want it right now. These kids are eating hot pockets. They're not all of a sudden having full meals. They're not eating, cooking, baking eggs and toast. They're eating Pop Tarts. So at the end of the day, it's got to come with it. It's got to be fast. Don't leave me hanging. Give me a reason why and get straight to the point. And so because of that, this was slow. And I'm not saying that it's not slow, because I'm from Louisiana. I love grits. Hey, it takes 20, 25 minutes to make. I'm down with that. But you got to be able to know your audience. And in this time, it was just, I feel like it came out at the wrong
Grits are nasty.
So look, I'll say this. I agree with your synopsis, right? Especially if you're not a true Marvel fan. I agree with you on that. But if you are a fan, then my thing is, well, who's the target audience that you're appealing this to? To the fans that are of Marvel Comics, that do watch this and are truly invested into these movies. Now, granted, I can even say then the same people that are invested in it still looked at this and looked at it downwards, but just the same. But my only pre-caveat is, again, from an understanding place. I could understand, for me, someone looking at this and is a fan of it, I can understand this was going to be slow, and I'm fine with that. My problem is, did it sold me what I needed to be sold as far as the full visual of what is the makeup of a superhero movie and all its intangibles? It sold me just enough. Did it sold me everything? No. But it sold me enough. And that's what I'm saying.
Well, that's one of the reasons why you said there are some changes that need to be made, because it's not complete. And that's one of the reasons why we're at the halfway, at the medium point, but we're not one person on this panel has said this would be a classic. And so most Marvels, we would be right up there. I mean, right on the edge, if not already saying this is a classic. Let's hurry up. I can't wait for the next one to come out. But the thing about it is, this one, like I said at the beginning, needed some seasoned salt. It needed some pepper. We down south, hey, put some hot sauce on it. So let's go. But it needed a little something. I mean, if it needed a prayer or something, but it needed more than what it was given. And even they didn't put it, you could tell they didn't put a lot of money in it, and they only had one producer. Most of the movies we watch had at least 3 or 4 producers on here. The money was not there. So at the end of the day, for what they tried to do, I give it that. But when you put Marvel, the word Marvel at the very beginning, before the movie even starts, you're setting that bar high. And like I always used to say, you don't always have to be the best, but set the standard. And so right now, I'm telling you, this needed some still work. I mean, you don't take the cake out until it's fully cooked. And right now, it still needed to do some cooking.
All right, let me get amazing.
I can agree with you on that.
You're both wrong. Damn it, this was a
no, Jake, no.
Let me get amazing in here. So, what did you think about the plot of the storyline?
I love the plot.
And go ahead, you could kick off the scenes also.
Okay.
So we can jump in.
I love the plot, but I felt like the storyline was choppy, just because, again, I felt like it would have been much. I actually have mixed feelings at this point, because I feel like I would have been much more invested had I been able to know some of the background. But also, I feel like not knowing the background and hearing things about it makes me want to go back and watch other movies. So in one way, you know what I mean? It was a good marketing strategy, I guess. What scenes or actors' performance stuck out? I thought in general, I felt like I heard a lot of bad feedback. I thought everybody did well in general for what it was and what the purpose of this movie was. I thought they did a good job at making Cassie kind of like a loner, weirdo in a way. But like not the normal motherly, they did make her feel kind of like standoffish. I felt that they did a great job at that. And one of the scenes, just considering the build up to that I thought stood out was when she realized that her mother was in the Amazon to actually cure an issue she was having in the womb and kind of put everything into perspective for her. So I thought that was just a really good scene to tie in everything on, she grew up in foster care. She made that comment, and then she was just awkward around anything emotional or feeling type. Going back to the baby shower scene, I did think it was funny because I love going to things like that. But I was thinking that if somebody invited me to a baby shower, like say I had a work partner in that situation to a woman I didn't know, I'm not going. That's weird. But in general, if I had, like she was put in an awkward situation. She didn't even know this lady. She was her partner's sister. So it was Ben's sister who was pregnant. So if somebody's inviting me to their sister's baby shower, no, I'm not doing that. But I thought they did a good, I just thought they did a good character build for her for what I thought was the purpose of her character. The only scene I felt like I really just didn't think was necessary was when the young girls, the 3 spider girls, were at the diner and they started like dancing on the table. I was kind of like, what is the purpose of this? Like they could have got attention some other way than making it go that route. Because I did think they did a good job at like I thought their outfits were cute. It wasn't too much. It was kind of like appropriate just for the whole scene and what they were going through. And then they had that scene and I just thought that was over the top. But that my favorite scene was when she kind of put everything together. Like my mom was in the Amazon, but it was really for me. So she wasn't selfish, which kind of came across at the beginning was Cassie thought her mom was selfish for being out there. And really, she wasn't being selfish. She was out there to save you.
I like that. That's what mamas do.
All right, let me get the Wally on there. What scenes and performances stuck out, Wally?
All right, so to Amazing's point, I didn't love the fact that she was at the baby shower. That was weird, but I understand why she was there because of the fact that, lo and behold, Ben Parker's sister, aka the other Parker, which possibly is the mother of Peter Parker, that brings a whole lot of interest right there into a whole lot of plays of, just future tense of a whole load of streams. So that's cool. One of the things that I just didn't like about her though was like, okay, like the hospital scene, right? You dropped off the patient after you saved them. The young boy gave you a picture to a gratitude of thanks for saving their parent. You felt very awkward and in a way heartless to the whole thing. Is like you just could have taken and just put a smile on your face. You were very awkward on that case. It's like, okay, okay, that was horrible. Like no, like your job is saving people. Like you should be you should be happy that you're saving people. That right there was horrible for me. I didn't like that. So they failed on that part. Another thing that was just laughable, but at the same time also stupid in my I don't take this stupid anymore, but other than that, the other scenes for me was just again the dude rocking a slight similar mask of the Spider-Man suit. That was just no. I'm like, seriously, y'all could have thought of a different design. Literally, y'all could have really thought of a different design. Personally, in my opinion, it's just horrible to me. But again, referring back to the great power comes with great responsibility. Well, I know they didn't say exactly, but pretty much is the way how it comes out in these days of just the whole Spider-Man scenery. But yeah, it's definitely those are like some of the big scenes right there. I will say though, like when you had mentioned about the girls dancing on the table, that was really not called for because you have one of the girls with a skirt on. Like literally, nobody did that. Like, what world are you on? Dancing in front of boys and one of them got a skirt on. Oh, you got to be kidding me! Like that was just like okay.
Thank you, Wally.
That was just uncalled. But one of the things, no, just to be real, like that was just a little bit too much right there.
It was too
If you gotta
much.
be serious.
Hey,
That was a little too much.
first of all they're doing every single time is showing her all of a sudden getting ready to take on this mother role. She had to be the mother that comes in there,
Hey,
the older
that's all
person
good.
to rescue them. It happened
Hey,
every time. So
Hey, that's all good. But notice one thing. Let me tell you something. They could have did that without that alone. Let me tell you why. Notice one big connection between all of them. They were all, they were all pretty much separated from those that they were connected to every which way, right? You know, Webb was pretty much an adopt child because her mother died, trying to save her life, which she did. Every one of the females were all exiled, from their parent one way or another because of certain situations, right? They all were separated. But what is the one a nice universal spiritual thing that they like to sit here and say, right? Usually when you're isolated, you're meant for something bigger. And guess what? Every last one of them were all isolated and they're all were meant for something bigger. That is a powerful message right there if you didn't catch that or if you didn't know that. So that's something for me, that scenery right there, knowing that you isolate every person, even the ones that actually had parents, but because each of these parents were neither selfish or they didn't care for their kid for whatever reasons, or, they got into trouble, they all were isolated, all different facets. And they all were taken up by someone that know what it looks like to be alone, didn't have really a connection with the world and try to figure it out as they move on because they're so detached from everyone else they once knew and cared about. So, and now find newer and deeper purpose that they can align with that gives them life fruit. So that right there was a big scenery for me in overall facets of this whole movie. As far as performance, I really can't really hit on any performance. I mean, pretty much the only performance I can really think about that is just nice on anything else was just more so outliers. So, shout out to Epps, man. That's the real talk. Shout out to Epps, man. He didn't have to go out like that. Oh, man. That was so horrible. He did not have to go out like that. But, I mean, it was just crazy. It was crazy. But those are my scenes right there.
But all right, Casey, Fred, what scene stuck out to you?
I think the scene of her, that one scene that had Mike Epps, I got to go back to that because one thing, she saw it, and then at the same time, she was like, do I say something? Do I pull him out? Do I go ahead and go for it? And then all of a sudden she realized in reality what happens if she doesn't take action. And so, which leads to the next scenes of when she meets these girls, the same thing goes down, and if she doesn't take action, all of them are going to be killed. And so when she finally takes action, now all of a sudden she becomes big sister, which eventually works its way down to her at the end becoming the mother spider of them all. And I just thought that was a lot of growth, a lot of development. And to tag on to what Wally was saying, you sweating down there, Wally?
Hell yeah, we in Florida, man. The humidity is crazy. Oh, Lord have mercy.
I was like, man, he just gave a sermon. He wiping their like, that's the offering plate, Wally. But no, I thought it was really cool because the coming of yourself and learning, and that's why she had to go to Peru, because in order for me to be able to really help somebody else, I got to be able to know who I am. And I got to be able to know what I can do, what I can handle. Can I actually be a mother? Which at the end, she was. Can I actually be able to sacrifice all the way down to my life if necessary for not only what I believe in, but for these three souls that are attached to me? And the thing about it is she had a chance so many times to leave them. And yet at the end of the day, it was always that moral compass that says, if not me, then who will? And so all of a sudden she rose to the occasion. And it's just like, in a sense, you can almost see, everyone can almost see themselves in this. Of course, my very, like I was saying before, when she told them, because she does see the future, and but it's just only a glimpse before it happens. And the villain, he's been having this one vision all this time. And so she finally broke it down to him at the end of the movie when she finally learned who she was and what she could do and her capabilities. She was like, hey, they're not your future. I am. And so what she was saying is they're not going to be the one that's going to kill you. I am. And so that's just like any mother, especially like a mama bear that all of a sudden pulls the cub behind her and says, hey, if you want to get to them, you got to go through me. And so that's when the fight was on. And so he was like, hey, if that's what it takes, then let's go. Because at the end of the day, I'm coming for these three, whether you in my way or not. And so that's where the battle was. And I felt like that's when, honestly, that's when the action really began. And that's when this movie really started going up. And so then at the end of the movie, she all of a sudden realized that, hey, if I have to sacrifice myself for these girls, hey, I'm willing to do that. Because at the beginning, she wasn't willing to sacrifice herself for nobody. She wasn't about to take that leap of faith for no one. And so it was just like, hey, if you on the side of the road, you just on the side of the road, but I'm not pulling over to be able to help you or get you from A to B. No, it's not that kind of party. But as she had personal growth and we saw her character development, she finally came to that point. And I thought it was very ironic that all of a sudden her superpower was to be able to see, and yet she still lost her vision of sight. And so all of a sudden, she told them at the very end when she's in like a little wheelchair, and they said, can you see us? What do you see? And then she tells them what she sees, you know, and it's their future. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to breathe on you and I'm going to tell you exactly who you are. And I said to myself, man, that's what mamas do. And I felt like her real mom would be so proud of her. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing, she grew up and she became her own person. And so I felt like, to me, everybody wants to know, why is it called Madam? You know what I'm saying? And I felt like it, yeah, we get the part of Web. We understood that part, but why would you call it Madam? Especially for a girl that's so young. But when all of a sudden, what do you call a mom? Don't you call them Madam? And so I felt like there was some purpose and some meaning behind it or whatever to be able to get from A to B. And like I said, I had it at a 5 because of how slow it was dragging to be able to build up. But once you got to like what Wally was saying about 3/4 going towards the end, that's when it really picked up. I did think it was funny the Pepsi Cola signs, one letter falling down individually at a time. And I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. We saw the whole Pepsi Cola, but it just one letter at a time was just falling down. And so I got it, because the action, like I said, they didn't have a lot of money to be able to produce this movie. So they had to do with whatever they had. And so that's one of the reasons why I would say, as we progress, what would you change? It's got to be a mini series, or else turn it to a cartoon or something. Because one thing, you really want to be able to fill up the gaps. And so that's where I'm at on that.
All right. So there was only 2 scenes that I would say pretty much stuck out for me. So definitely, I like the scene when that kid came up and was like handing her the picture. And I like how she was just like, man, go buy me a slice of pizza, a beer, or something. You making me this little stupid drawing. So I like how she was kind of like just awkward with that because it did showcase her like personality. And then I like the end scene when they was like in a warehouse where, you know, the one villain kind of came after them. And the reason I like that because it showed like how, like I said, kind of clumsy they were. They didn't really knew their power capabilities. So that's why I kind of like the movie because I think in too many movies, they jump into like, you know, in like part one, it's just like, okay, they go find their powers. They train for like a half a day. And then now they could just take on all the villains where it's just like she was kind of stumbling into it. She knew like she could see things. So that's how she was able to beat them. But like I said, none of them like knew the full capabilities. So I kind of like how they started the you know the first movie off with them being that vulnerable, them not knowing what's going on, and it could be just like a gradual buildup. So it's like I understand like a lot of people might not like this one, but I think it's going to be one of those movies where, you know, once the second one rolls out and then they start to train it, it's like you're going to have that appreciation, like, oh, okay, man, I could go back. The first part makes sense now. Like it's a little better than what I thought because now it, you know, that gradual buildup, like I kind of like it. And I think even after people hear, you know, the sophisticated jerk and his eloquent breakdowns, they're going to start realizing this. They're like, oh shit, that's a good point. You know what?
Hey, jerk. I agree with you, bro, because I do agree with the
eloquent breakdown. Is that
the eloquent breakdown of the picture? Because
shout out
that
to
was
Fred.
actually foreshadowing because she didn't have a family, but at the end of the movie, she ends up having a family. So I like that breakdown there, brother.
Okay.
You did a good
and
job.
then I got to give Wally some props because yeah, in that diner, you know, they was like on the table and stuff, like 5 damn minutes. They on the table, you know, city girls and stuff. So that scene was kind of out of place, and yeah, I don't know what the hell they was thinking.
I mean, hey, look, for the whole motherly thing, it's needed, but at the same time, I still say it just didn't need to really be at that extent like that.
Yeah, you know, not like jumping on the table and dance. Like you said, they could have been like just partying or something, but yeah, they ain't gotta like do them like that.
Right, because the way I seen it, once she run the cab right into the dude, I'm like, see, that's all the motherly you need right there. Bam, just run right into him, boom, and get them kids.
Like you said, they could have showed them like hanging out with the guys, but yeah, not like the tables. That's all over the top. Like, yeah, so that was out of place. But we'll go ahead. We'll jump into the next question.
I just want to point out that you're such a hater because I agree with amazing.
What was that? What was you saying?
You don't realize your own hate for me.
What's that?
Wally agreed with amazing. That was my point, sir. Wally.
Nah, why you always trying to take shit away from Wally?
So I just wanted to point out your like very straightforward haterisms on.
Oh man!
Oh man!
I feel like
Wally came with a great idea. Here's amazing. Just snatch the joy out of his heart. But no, Wally, that was a good like observation that you did, and I appreciate you for that.
Oh my god!
But all right, we'll jump into the if you were the director or producer for the movie, what would you change or do differently? And I'll go to you first, Fred.
Miniseries all the way. Let's do it, because at the end of the day, if it becomes a miniseries, all these questions that the audience had, you can take the time and you can elaborate. Plus, on top of that, miniseries is only 60 minutes. You don't have an hour and 56 minutes to be able to wait for somebody to grow up and be able to finally become a dysfunctional family. No, you take your time and you go and you break down each person. And all of a sudden, this episode, we doing this person. Next episode, we're going to do this person. Next episode, we're going to shoot the past and find out the real reason why we even went down this road in the first place. That's what you need to be able to do. And then, like I said, you be able to slip a little action here and there, cut to commercial and call it a day. But the way this was, it was just like I said, it was slow. It needed something, some seasoned salt, some pepper, some peppery. It needed something so that way we could get it going because, like I said, it's Marvel. And so Marvel is cut at a higher cloth. I'm trying to break it down for you. It's like Marvel is always busting out with steak. This right here was just a hot dog. So I mean, it was just like it needed some extra.
Hey, hot dog's still good.
You ain't lying.
You gotta add some stuff to
Like
it.
hot dogs.
Hey, no, I hear you, Fred. I hear you.
Why
Gotta
you
add some
bougie,
baked
Fred?
beans. Gotta add some baked beans on that bad boy. You gotta, I hear you. No, I hear
That's
you.
the thing. You had to add something to it.
One of those Costco hot dogs.
You got to add something to it. You got to add that cheese, that chili, you know what I'm saying? Some radish, some mustard, some ketchup. And that's what this movie really needed. And so, like I said, it needed some help. It needed some prayer. It needed something. But like I said, it was leaving the audience like in desperate need of trying to figure things out. And the thing is you need closure. And there wasn't enough closure. In fact, to this day, can anybody tell me what the 3 girls' special powers are? No.
That's the brilliance of the movie.
Because
you'll find out in episode 2.
That's why it needed to be a miniseries. They could have at least gave you a clue, but they didn't tell you squat.
Like,
no, well, they technically did it. You just gotta, well, okay, not to the extent, but you can tell like certain ones had their own niche ability. I think only one of them was not clear though, because I ain't gonna lie, one of them wasn't clear. The other one, like 2 of them were, because like Eninia Cortez, I don't want to say her name wrong, but Eninia C. Yeah, Anya C. See her powers. So pretty much when you saw the spider legs, that's actually coming from her exoskeleton. So it's coming, that's extorting from her body. So that's pretty, deep right there, because that means that she got some really sharp, spider legs, because that's how strong those are. The girl that had like the glowing web. So from what that is, I believe that web can actually drain someone of their, I guess, of their abilities or energy, quote unquote. So that's another thing right there. So when you saw those scenes where she was, whipping out that golden, like whip, or in this case, golden web, that was actually draining, the guy down. So he was probably slowing down, which is why it looked like he was so easily defeated in that way. And as far as for that other female, now that one, that was a little bit, I had to do some research on that, because that one's a little bit weird to me, because I did not know where that's coming from.
Okay.
I appreciate that, spiderologist.
So Wally, what would you change or do differently?
Oh yeah, no, for me, definitely, from one perspective, definitely make this a TV series. I think it would have been better that way. But for what it is as a movie, yeah, like I said before, I truly would like to see like how did she get there and how she got back and who took care of her. Because I mean, even if it's simple, like you get back over there, you put some clothes on, next thing you know, you drop the little baby off somewhere that you would believe is a good place for her to live, and the people that picked her up after they saw her on her porch, is the one that took care of her and everything. They adopted her, all that yin yang yo, all that good stuff, right? And you make a correlation with why she chose to be a firefighter. Because if you think about it, right, going back to her mother, she thought at a time her mother was selfish, when in reality she was doing it for her. Which, if you notice, she in a lot of ways you could say that she sort of picked her job not in the sense of being selfish, but to being caring, because she's doing what? Protecting people's lives. So funny enough, you picked the right occupation, because that's the occupation you're doing anyways once you become a hero. So that's just another further one. But yeah, I think that just dropping her off somewhere, like to a person, just believe they had a good family, that would have been a decent scene to just seen, because just stretching to a point like, oh, she just magically grows up and she's adopted and this and that. I'm like, okay, that's a little bit of a stretch. I mean, y'all forced it a little bit, but okay, fine. But I would have changed that for me. The second part I would definitely change is the girls actually leaving to Peru with her. Why? Because, of course, each of these girls are destined to have spider powers anyway. So why just wait for the simple fact of the movie to then gain powers when you should have just got it? Now, granted, yes, I do believe that, what Jerk was saying, if they get the powers, they would slightly over jump it. Like, oh, their power's so easy to adapt to, and then 1, 2, 3, and it's like crazy. But I take that more as of, I think they would just extended it way more because, like, let's be honest, the movie was like 4 more minutes before it's 2 hours, so you would probably have to extend it just to give a little bit in depth of the powers and what they're able to do and how they feel, and that because of course once Madam Web filled the powers of the villain and knowing that the dude's putting toxins in her, which is stopping her to live and breathe and all that. Like where that's coming from. So it's like, okay, you're understanding what effects that's really taking up on you and your body overall. So it was just complete understanding of that. I think another big hitter for me, like literally, this is just the big hitter. The girls are the ones that actually end him. Like that's just my thing. The girls finished their first villain. You guided them, which you're the mystery play in all of this, but you're you're not the mystery player eventually, but you're the mystery player that guides them into their powers, and then is like, okay, boom, they take on the mantle of being the Spider-Woman or however you want to call their group for that part of the reasons. And then of course they expand on their own, being their own thing, and you guide them along the way to protect lives. I think that's just for me, that would have been more sensible, or at least keep the dude alive, and then he comes back to face them one day, and knowing that one day, yes, he will eventually have to deal with the fact that, he's going to have to deal with the fact that he has to face all 3 of them. I mean, one way or the other, but I definitely do believe that them gaining powers, getting the spider bite, all this, and then engraping into their powers would have been necessary because because let's be honest, you can say by the time you take a plane ride, take a trip, you take a little bus or a van trip, and then you go walk into the forest to find these guys, which eventually you do because apparently they know that you're coming. And then you find them, they all learn their abilities. Each of them get taught by what they can do and why they're able to do it and what makes them more different than why they're getting these different powers. Because a lot of these powers that they got is really unique because a lot of the Spider-Men don't really have these type of powers at all, so it actually makes the female side a little bit more interesting of that notion because their powers are way more different. So yeah, but I think definitely that would have been really the kicker for me because you constantly let the villain keep visualizing he losing to these 3 girls, and then it just flipped because Madam Web is the one that beats him. Which, don't get me wrong, that scene was good. It was good because a lot of the things that she had to do with the firecracker and everything, that definitely played a lot to her predictability because she's able to forecast where these are coming and he's not. So that was one of the more things about it, which, funny enough, I do see why her abilities are more so of a psychic one because if you think about it, the guys, what they get, the strength, the agility, all that, they get all that stuff, but the females weren't getting that exactly. They were getting a whole lot of something different. And I'm like, okay, that made that interesting. But that would have been more interesting to me than this because it was too much of a stretch. And plus the dude, he literally got smashed up too easy for me, in my opinion. Yeah. No.
But all right, amazing. What would you change or do differently?
I do actually think I would like the miniseries. The only other thing I thought I would change is I think villains in this type of movie should not be as good looking as Ezekiel was. I feel like he needed a scar on his face, like a slash.
Oh wow! hey, amazing. Let me tell it to you like this: a lot of the quote unquote good looking guys are always the villains. You think I'm lying?
Look, good looking guys, I personally feel like should be villains in documentary true stories, in horror movies, not in Marvel action movies. Now, a beautiful woman would be a great villain in an action story. I just feel like they should have put a scar across his face to make it a little more.
Oh, Okay,
That's
okay.
weird.
You know
That's a
what?
weird take.
See, you know what? Now I'm agreeing with sophisticated church. You got some sexism going on now.
Mm, just be hating. Want to make the females
No, I
villains.
agree. In real life, you gotta look up for the
Hey,
good
look,
looking ones.
don't get me
but
wrong.
in
Don't
the
get me
Marvel
wrong. Amazing.
movies, they
Don't
should
get me
be
wrong.
villains. No,
When
give me
you're
a star.
if you're rugged, yeah, I get it. If you're a villain, you should be really rugged, and I get that part. You should be really rugged. I get that part. I think you can just tell he was rugged though, because just look at his like how they set him up with the facial features and all that. You're just really a rugged dude. But my thing is, in a lot of cases, when you're a good-looking guy, you can be manipulated that way, which also adds to your evilness, right? Because notice one thing, right? When he had that one night stand with that woman, yeah, being good looking makes perks because you wooed her right into your home, and next thing you know, you poisoned her, and then you took the key that motherfucker give you all the security,
No,
surfaces
I feel like
around the way.
Yeah.
So
they
yeah,
still needed a
being
big
pretty
star
and
going
villain
straight across
works.
his face.
Hey, he actually said, I've been poor all my life. So then when all of a sudden he takes the spider, now all of a sudden he got some money. That's when he started looking good. But before that, so what I'm saying is put a little money in your pocket. Anybody can get facelift, touch up, you know what I mean, enhance some face.
Oh,
Hey,
Lord.
but
But
hey,
he
We're
was
not
looking
going
that
there.
good when he
Fred.
was in Peru, when all of a sudden he was over there kicking that dust and stuff like that, you know. So at the end of the day, he got a little change, got a little something, something. The next thing you know, he's suave. So I think that was all about the
My
money.
man was living life. Got them draws quick.
Hey, but look, but don't forget though, those spider bites also enhances the body too. So that's another thing. You know, it could enhance his life a little bit better. So yeah. Hey,
Are you looking for some spiders, Wally?
no,
Shit,
no,
I might go to Peru. But all right, yeah. As far as me, I would have kept the movie the same. Like I said, I like how they did the build up, so I wouldn't even change it. I think it's going to be a good beginner intro to the rest of the series and stuff. I do like our take though of miniseries. I think it could have worked too, like how they did with like Daredevil and stuff. So that's a good take also. This would have been a good one for like the Netflix, like they did with the Punisher and all them with Marvel and all that.
Yeah.
But all right, man, we'll go ahead and close this one out. So mixed reviews on this movie. Oh, I forgot the last part, man. I'm tripping. Now that you heard other perspectives, would you change your score, keep it the same, or
Wally's
you,
sweating down
you
there.
going up or down?
Yeah, man.
So we're gonna start with you, Wally.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm gonna stand to it. I'm gonna stand on a 7. I'm gonna stand on a 7.
Okay,
like
okay.
There was definitely some fixes that do need to be happen, but to the core of what you expect out of a superhero movie, it did give me what I needed to see. So nonetheless, I give it a 7.
Casey Fred.
I'm gonna stay the same too. It's 6.5. Like I said, it wasn't steak, but it was a decent hot dog. It just needed a little something on it. And like I said, a miniseries would have just did just fine for me. But the nacho still went down smooth. So, like I said, it ended well. I like that. So we can go from there.
All right, amazing.
I'm actually gonna bump up to a 7. I think people
Okay,
make
okay, that's what I'm talking about.
And again, thinking about it more so, I feel like they do make me want to watch some of the other movies to connect the dots. So
Yeah, I'm gonna bump it up to 7.8. Still in very good. I can't go to 8 territory, but I'll give it a little bump.
You couldn't even bump it up to that territory.
Nah, because I appreciate like how they, man, like I said, because I just think so many movies rush. And you know, like I said, it's just like, man, they go in a warehouse, train for like an hour, and now all of a sudden, you know, they could take on the top villain. So I just like how they didn't expose too much. And then like even when you brought it up the Parker thing, I didn't even make that connection. So I like how I like how some of the pieces are. They're not giving too much information because like I think they could do so much with the second part. Where I think people once they watch it, they'll be like, you know what, I do appreciate. Okay, it makes sense now. I think it's gonna be one of those type of movies. But all right, man.
My only quick caveat to what you're saying about the powers is, you know how this is. They may show it like it may be like a couple of days, but reality that took like weeks or so to really do what they had to do. They
I agree.
Skipping it. So.
But all right, man, we'll go ahead and close this one out. Y'all leave us some comments. Let us know if we tripping. You agree?
They're gonna kill. They're gonna kill.
But all right, keep tuning in. Peace.
Yo.